Okay, I think we can kick off. Um, it was I was watching TV, a little bit of TV, and following some of the news just during this past week. And when I was looking at some of that news, uh, I was astounded, as I often am, by um, it's all fine. Um, I was astounded by some of Donald Trump's brashness. I mean, here America's falling apart at the seams with coronavirus, the worst that it is anywhere in the world, kind of, or not quite, but it's bad. And he's, they've had all of these uh, uh, protests against racial injustice and everything. And Donald Trump doesn't know how to keep his mouth shut. He just goes there to Mount Rushmore now, and he just stirs up the fire. It divides, and everybody's like, "Oh, how cringeworthy is this?" I mean, how can this guy be so heartless? But it made me kind of think of something that I was with some very good friends, and we were sitting at a very lovely little restaurant somewhere in a place called Tbilisi, in Georgia, very much like the mountains behind Ken there. And in fact, the friends that I was with Ken and Marina, and we were discussing something, and the a topic came up. It was around what we were eating and the prices and things, and it was like the sense of fairness. And very often you don't mind going to a restaurant when we could go to restaurants and sitting and ordering a lovely meal, and within reason, it doesn't matter how much that meal really cost. So long as it didn't go over that threshold of being unfair, because if you feel as though you ripped off, then it's a terrible experience, and it kind of digs in somewhere. So we just let Nikki in the room. And we were talking about, I suppose in that context, Ken, it was about how little we were paying and how much we were getting, and how refreshing all of that was, and how we felt as though we were privileged, in fact. And that was in stark contrast once to when Yvonne and I were traveling through Hawaii, and I was going to go and see Ramdas, and we'd been picked up at the airport because we'd organized one of those shuttle buses, and we'd been taken through by that shuttle bus on a route all the way through Waikiki to a hotel somewhere. And as we were going along the way, the shuttle bus driver was telling us sightseeing places and must go to places. And obviously that was another way of adding a revenue stream to that bus service. He was probably paid to promote certain places along the way. And the one place was this breakfast restaurant. And it was the breakfast restaurant in Waikiki, in fact, in the whole of that part of Hawaii. And it was a must-go-to place. So one day, Yvonne and I just said to each other, wouldn't it be great just to go to this restaurant and get a decent breakfast? Because wherever you go in Waikiki, not wherever you go, I suppose if you go to some of the restaurants, you'd get a decent breakfast. But most of the places on the street are these hamburger fast food places. And the breakfasts are just, man, they're plastic. They're awful. The things inside these buns and stuff are like Marmite flavored bits of cardboard. It's the only way to really describe them. And it was, wherever we went, it's like, ugh, we can't put the stuff in our stomach. Let's just go to this restaurant and let's see if this is the best breakfast place in the whole of Hawaii. Let's go there. And we ended up going to this place, and we had to stand in this long queue. And it went up this flight of stairs onto a first floor where this restaurant was. And finally, when we got up there, going up the stairs, there was some guy, very brash American, who was coming down the flight of stairs with an iPad and a stylus. And he's like, "What are you having?" It's like, what do you mean, what are we having? We're not even in the restaurant yet. He says, what are you having? You must tell me what you're having. And he was like, really? Don't you know what you're having yet? And was like, no, how do we know what you even have to offer? Well, it's here on the wall. There's a menu printed on the wall. Tell me what you're having. I'm coming back now. We're in a rush. So we looked at the thing on the wall. I was like, gee, what am I going to have? I'm going to have some tea maybe, and whatever I ordered. And Yvonne ordered, it was some
blueberry muffins.
A blueberry.
No, those are pancakes.
A blueberry pancake. It's like, okay, fine. So this guy came back all huffy and with the iPad, and then we had to choose these things, and he poked about on the stylus, and out came a piece of paper with our order, and he tore this piece of paper off and gave it to me, and then went down the line. And we started to see this is like a factory. We just like sausages in a sausage machine. And eventually we shuffled our way up, and we came around a corner, and as we sort of faced the restaurant, there was another person there on the sausage machine production line who now took this piece of paper, took the number, there was a barcode number, scanned the number, and then we had to pay. And so we paid with a credit card, and it wasn't cheap at all. We hadn't seen the breakfast yet. And then the next stage is we got into the restaurant, and they took the piece of paper, scanned the number again, and then, oh, you're having tea. So I got a tea bag. One tea bag for you, a little thing of sugar and plastic milk, and the hot water's over there. And so this whole process unfolded, and it was the most disgusting, awful experience we have ever had in our entire life. This mountain of sludge,
It was horrible. The food
fake
was horrible.
blueberries and fake sweet cream and all of the stuff. And it was just disgusting. And there was the sense of deep unfairness. We'd paid a lot of money. We'd been oversold something that we never really got. Forget the rest of the story about Americans and their brashness and their ugliness and the fight we had over a table and stuff.
Yeah.
That's a whole new story for another day. But by the time we sort of pushed the sludge around and we ate part of it, and it was like, we just left. It was just the most disgusting experience ever. But anyway, it made me think, this thing about unfairness. And I was just listening to a poem that was written by a steel worker maybe, or a miner somewhere in northern England. And this is a working class guy. And his poem, sort of, if I'm paraphrasing it, it says, I'm tired of not being able to say my truth. I'm tired of not being able to use words like homosexual, black, white, Jewish, all of these words that are pruned out. He says, I have no axe to grind with anyone, but I'm tired of the censorship of what I may or may not say. And I'm not allowed to express my anger. And sometimes I'm not allowed to express my opinion, because my opinion may sometimes be offensive. And it took me back to a podcast I did when I was doing the series of podcasts. And this was episode 28, if anyone wants to go and have a look at it. It was about political correctness. And when I looked back at that this morning, so this is how the story sort of links from Trump to unfairness about pancakes and fairness about what is considered fair and how we measure things in terms of fairness. And sometimes we look now at the world and we think how unfair and how insensitive someone like Donald Trump is. And that we want to create a world with all inclusiveness. Social justice is the word. That no matter who you are and where you find your place in the world, if we have respect and social justice says that it is a just society when diversity across the spectrum finds its home and finds its place comfortably and with peace. without having to fight for it. And so there's the bell curve, and that bell curve says that the standard deviation of people are going to fit into a cluster somewhere in that bell curve, and they're going to be outliers on both sides. They're going to be those who are going to be narcissistic and fascist, and they're going to be those that are going to be like the Dalai Lama, all-encompassing and beautiful, just beautiful beings. And there's this sort of a just society would not only make the society there only for the few, the standard deviation, those numbers that fit neatly under the bell curve, but a socially just society is a just society that has a place for everyone to the very extremes of that spectrum, and makes society a place, a residence where everyone can fit in. So it made me think, what is this political correctness about, and what are people really looking for? This fascist rising, we see a little bit of it happening in Germany, or not a little bit, quite a lot of it happening in Germany. We see white male influence. There's a term for it, I forget it right now. White male dominance, almost like kicking back now, saying, "Oh, we don't know how to express our masculinity anymore. You know, we're not allowed to say anything. Or in the past, we could, you know, use the K word because that's what men did, or talk about women in the kitchen, or, you know, disparage people in whichever way we can. Now we are so hamstrung by all of the political correctness that we don't know how to express ourselves anymore. We don't even know what it's like to be men anymore." Well, I could tell them a thing or two, but anyway. And so you have part of society who feels as though they have no voice anymore. They feel afraid. They feel as though they're in this place of unfairness. And yet you get the fringe on the other side of the spectrum who have been bullied, who have been dealt with horribly, who have been marginalized, and persecuted and tortured, and who feel as though this is unfair. I don't have a place in society. This isn't my home at all. And is political correctness the way to go? And I understand part of what political correctness was about. I just want to, there were a couple of little things here that I wrote down when I made my notes for that episode, the soul searching episode. And I wrote here, political correctness, or being PC, is a reform movement that argues in favor of constrained language to empower the powerless victims against those who use language to support their advantages in society. Maybe I should read it again, because I quite like that definition. Political correctness is a reform movement that argues in favor of constrained language to empower the powerless victims against those who use language to support their advantages in society. So here in South Africa, in the past, we used to talk of colored people. And that got changed in the world of political correctness to people of color. And why would that be important? Why would we change that phrase? It's because the emphasis in the beginning was on colored people. And it had to be changed around so that you put the word people up front. And the emphasis on people of color. And so the of color was a differentiator, not a label. And so slowly, political correctness started to find its way into society by changing the phrases and the clauses that we used. But it became ridiculous. We were encouraged in the planetarium, for instance, not to talk about black holes because they're politically incorrect. But we should talk about gravitationally obese structures in the universe. And that now becomes a little bit kind of ridiculous. where do you go with this? How do you use language now in a form of censorship, self-censorship maybe even? And have we gone too far with political correctness? And is this why this pendulum has swung so much to the side, where it's giving impetus and power to fascist ideologies? Has it gone all that far because of some of this? And in a way, Donald Trump labels the liberals, the Democrats, as the politically correct ones, and the ones that are curtailing freedom. And yet he is going out there and saying what he wants to say, almost in defense. I suppose if I were Donald Trump, I would say it was in defense of freedom of speech and liberty and looking after yourself. So there's another quote that I have here. Politically correct speech is a language planning movement that tries to censor sexist, racist, and pejorative terms, banishing them from the English language. Political correctness means the alteration of one's choice of words to avoid either offending a group of people or reinforcing a stereotype. So, all good and well. It seems like something that I want to buy into. I don't want to. I don't want to use language that creates a slur, that marginalizes, that ridicules or belittles people, because any of that I use is going to create a sense of unfairness, and we know how we react to unfairness, and how important it is to create balance, because balance engenders fairness rather than creating this kickback against something that is unfair. But maybe what we should be looking for is not so much a refinement, an overt refinement in the way we use language. Because after a while, what happens is that we just hide our inner feelings. I live in a predominantly Afrikaans community here, and I will hear the politically correct speech. All the words are politically correct. But with somebody like myself, who's pretty much au fait with NLP and hypnosis and suggestion and body language and tone of voice, you can see that those words have no meaning. They know that they are inflammatory and that the person could get locked up in jail if they use them. And so there is a measure of self-censorship. But if one creates a little experiment and just offers a doorway to letting go those terms by throwing in some inflammatory statement, you'll see quickly how that political correctness disappears. And then all of the inner truth, that person's opinion, that person's own inner values, their value set, that just comes rushing out. And it's like, oh my goodness, I didn't realize it was that bad, that you hold back so much. And when we hold back so much, what does it do? It engenders anger. One now feels a little bit kind of marginalized in some sense. So it's a hot pot of stuff. I wrote another, these are just little quotes from this episode of Soul Searching. Some people have a high degree of empathy towards others and tend to soft pedal harsh truths, calling this behavior tactfulness or diplomacy. Why should it be tactful or diplomatic? Surely you shouldn't even have to measure it. If you have to wrap this thing up in a little bit of cellophane and make it look like a sweet, then shouldn't that just come naturally? Should we not just be? We don't have to censor our language. I think when language starts to reach that tipping point where we're now so cautious about everything that we say, where treading on eggshells, really. I think what we have to do is we have to take a step back and say, this is a reflection on us. And how honest am I really being? Is this my truth? Or am I deeply racist? Do I have traits of bigotry within me, residual traits of bigotry in me? If I have to censor my language, surely if I don't have that bigotry inside me, or if I don't have latent racism inside me, I will never, ever have to censor my language, because my language would never be the language of, it would never be pejorative language. It would never be language that divides and humiliates and is disrespectful to others. Political correctness is then in that sense a veneer. It's a bit of whitewashing over the graves in a way. There are one or two other just little quotes I want to give here. It was Sun Tzu, a Chinese general and military strategist of the 6th century BC, who said, all warfare is based on deception. He said, hence, when you are able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must appear inactive. When we are near, we must take the enemy. We must make the enemy believe we are far away. When far away, we must make him believe we are near. It is said that if you know your enemies and you know yourself, you will not be imperiled in 100 battles. So, political correctness, these programs tell us what to say. What we are doing is we're beguiling people. I don't know who is my enemy or who isn't my enemy. My preference would be for people just to have the freedom to say what they like and to express their opinion. Now, I know that sometimes we don't want to hear people's opinion, because if we hear people's opinion, it may hurt us, but that's our issue. That's when we let that barbed thing find a resting place somewhere in the heart and we have a reaction to it. And then when we have that reaction, we're going to feel hurt or marginalized or bullied, okay? But I would rather that you have your opinion and that you say your opinion, because then I know my enemy better. And I would rather that you express your opinion. Now, I'm no broadcaster, but when I was doing that show for the radio station in Pretoria, we went and we had a 6-week training program, where it was 6 Saturdays over 6 weeks, and we sat with one of the broadcasting trainers who does training for Radio 702. And it was interesting to see how one goes about conducting interviews and working with voice and all those kind of things. But one thing that came out that was quite interesting, and that is, if you're talking to somebody, if you are the interviewer and you are talking to an interviewee who you have a case against, then careful not to bring your prejudice, your opinion, your value judgment to that person. And so how would, if I had someone in front of me that I really didn't like, if there was somebody that really irked me, would I go hell for leather for that person and demolish them and give my opinion as to what I think was wrong about them? No, that would never make for a good interview, because what would happen is your listening audience might take issue against you, and they may think you have an axe to grind. And if you've ever listened to interviewers who've had an axe to grind, you kind of think, don't bring your personal stuff in here. So when interviewing somebody, what you do, the trick is to ask lots of questions. You give them the rope to hang themselves. And you just feed that rope out. And the more liberty you give them, the easier you make it for them, the less censorship you put on them. Eventually, and if you put pressure on them, they're going to reveal their opinion sooner or later. And when they've revealed their opinion sooner or later, you've been the neutral party in the interview. You've not said anything. They're the ones that have shown themselves up for their bigotry or their hatred or whatever it is. And then what happens is they hang themselves. And some of those interviews that you see with Donald Trump and the White House Rose Garden and stuff, those interviews, just the interviewee, the interviewer just pushes questions at Trump, and Trump can't help himself but to just launch out and hang himself. If he knew how to just restrain his voice and keep quiet, he wouldn't have built such a case against himself. So I think we just need to watch here a little bit. I think we're sitting in a world that's gone too far. The pendulum maybe has gone too far in terms of censorship. And even Facebook now, or Twitter, putting up these little banners or taking down people's posts because they're false news, false information. I sit with that as an awkwardness. I would rather people put all that rubbish out. But then I understand that 90% of the world are completely and utterly gullible. They don't have half. There's a marshmallow sitting up here, and you know how hard it is to try and chisel the 10 commandments into a marshmallow. You're not going to go too far. With some people, it is impossible to try and let them think for themselves. And so they are so gullible, and they're just like sponges, and they just take whatever it is. And if it's put in such a way, false news can very, very easily sway somebody into an opinion where there is no fact. How do we stop the censorship? How do we listen to all opinions? How do we discover the facts? How do we dig into what is truth and what isn't truth? And how do we protect ourselves from this flood of information that comes through in the world without losing that balance, without going right-wing or left-wing on this, without going into self-censorship through political correctness, or going into the extremes of being brutal and bullying. Last thing I just wanted to quote here was the definition of a bully. Bullies threaten, they destroy property, they instigate fights and aggression, they poke fun and belittle others, they shun others, they spread rumors, they get victims to do things they don't want to do. And we can use language both as an expression of love and oneness and connection. We can use language in restrained forms in terms of political correctness, which hides an agenda, as much as bullying can use language in order to divide and conquer in a way. So I just wanted to sort of throw that out today, because it's something that's been sitting uneasy with me. And I don't want us to be, first of all, I think we're completely manipulated through the invasion of our privacy. We've spoken about that, the big brother looking in on us. There's nothing really secret about where we go and what we do and who looks in on us. And it's almost like having a sick, perverted voyeur in your bedroom with you all wherever you go around life. And, you know, that Google being that sick, perverted voyeur just irks me. It really does. And I understand the idea of big data and how it can help. I come from the IT industry. So that's been a gripe of mine. But my new little hobby horse thing here is about being censored. I hate being told what to do, if one knows that. And it pushes buttons. It gets me into that space of unfairness. And careful that we don't have the hidden agenda and put on this syrupy, sweet, lovely little outwardly outward utterances that are so perfect little dialogues that hide that which we still have take issue with. I'd rather just be honest. But I know that if I became too honest, and maybe even on a platform like this, I'd get myself into trouble. But maybe we should. Maybe we shouldn't. So long as it's done with love, so long as it's done with inclusiveness, so long as it creates a just society, one of those societies that is encompassing and sees us all as equals, I can't see why we shouldn't be able to express our opinion from the heart. And if you're happy to express your opinion, I'm ready to listen to it. I don't have to take ownership of it. But I might also learn something from it, because it may teach me something that has never entered into this marshmallow of my own. Anyway, my tirade for the day.
Can I say something?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You're a South African, and this comes from what's happening in America, black versus white, or Black Lives Matter, and everything has a big influence into this. I'm standing a little bit on a cusp, because I lived in the Congo for 17 years. And whilst they also had the colonization, and there's also problems between black and white, but there has never been this feeling between the black and white community that when I'm speaking to someone and say, black people do this, or black people think like that, or black people eat this. This was completely accepted language. Here in South Africa, it is not. You cannot put the word black into your hands, into your mouth. Yesterday, I said to Tina something about staining the fingers, and with the black color, you've got an advantage because it stains less. I would not be able to say that to Salome, because she's South African. Tina and I had a good chuckle. And so what I'm saying is, what we say should be our feeling, but the problem is the history of the other person influences the way they pick it up.
So how would you feel, Yvonne, if some white dude called David Livingstone came marching down the African continent with a Bible under his hand, under his arm, and just laid claim to all the land and completely demolished everybody's cultural values, their sacred traditions, and foisted upon them this new religion because it was the only way to go. And a religion, in terms of political correctness, I mean, the one quote I had here is, just let me find it, because it's quite an interesting one. It's one out of the Bible. God encourages you to hate that which is bad. Hello, is that not just hate speech in its extreme? You know, and this is my religion and my cultural values, and if you don't fit into them, you are not even considered to be a human being. You some anathema, you know, to the human race. That is just disgusting. And so by the time that colonialization had happened and had imprinted itself on everybody, I understand. I'm a gay person. I understand what it's like when people are disparaging and just, you know, ugly, and how it hurts. If I had a black skin and I was spoken of as the house girl or the garden boy, and I'm a man of 50 years old and I have children of my own, I would be deeply offended by that. And you just hear some of the rhetoric taking place in America now, and it's hidden under this bit of political correctness called African Americans, you know, because you can't say Negro anymore, because that is so deeply inflammatory. So how do you smooth over it? And you find just another sweetener for it. And so you find these euphemisms, and these euphemisms are like African Americans, you know? It doesn't sit with me. It's like, be honest. Just say what you want to say. Get your ugliness out in public. And I think we have to check ourselves. And the way to check ourselves is not to censor and redact out of the language words like black. It has to be redacted out of the heart first, because then it'll by nature be redacted out of the speech.
I don't know if you understood what I meant, though,
No,
however,
I do.
because it depends on the history of the other person.
It depends on my history as to
As
how you
well,
talk to me.
but also to the other person. When I was in Atlanta, I got into the lift and there's 3 people coming in. There were 3 black people. I use the word black because it's a distinguisher, simply to tell the story. These are 3 black people who came into the lift. And the way I always do, I kind of
So
looked at the people and they verbally attacked me. What are you looking at? And I said, I'm not looking at anything. You know, where does this come from? I lived in the Congo with black people. There is not that same reaction.
That.
So different populations have a different response. South Africans have a different response. Congolese have a different response. People in Georgia and Atlanta have a different response. And it is their history that imprints that response.
So Yvonne, would you call another gay man a pansy, for instance, or a queer?
No.
Maybe the word black. Coming to you now, Pam. Thanks. Maybe the word black is hurtful as a label when it is used as a label, and especially if it's a pejorative label.
But for me, it isn't.
No, for you it isn't. But
that's
maybe your heart sensitivity is maybe this may very well be a hurtful pejorative term for somebody of color. Pam, you want to say something? Pam, I thought I saw your hand up, Pam.
You did?
Oh, there you go.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
There are so many little breaks in this transmission. It's really problematical.
Oh,
but
dear.
What I wanted to say about the quality of destroying a culture, I've just been reading about an Australian who rode from one end of Mongolia through into Russia to Hungary and recorded the total destruction of the Mongol and much of the Russian heritage, the plainsmen, by turning acres and acres into cotton farms and so on. This seems to be a quality of the dictator, the quality of the overriding power. And also, can you still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. The other thing is a lack of historical appreciation. There's a wonderful film on Pompeii and Herculaneum, British Museum, and the presenters are talking about the slaves and the life without accepting the fact that they presumably have to do their own housework, but they're very happy to go to restaurants and have somebody prepare the meal and clean it up and sweep the streets and all that. There's a lack of historical appreciation of how people have been living, quite apart of how they are living right now. And it gets to such a feeling of, I don't know, not even superiority. Okay, over to everybody else.
Thanks, Pam. Just mute your mic again for us there, so we don't hear the clicks and clacks behind. Anyone else want to add something here?
There we go.
Thanks. I see the internet here. We've had bad internet. Just to tell you about the sound quality, Pam. We've had really bad internet over the last 2 days. There was a big power failure in Tshwane the other day, and I think it might have kicked out 1 or 2 of the cell phone towers. So we really are struggling. Sorry for that quality. Anyway, if there's no further comment, it's just I needed to say what I needed to say. And it's maybe time just for a change of topic and to bring things back onto a lighter level. And Yvonne wants to share some stuff. So over to Yvonne.
It's actually just, we discussed it before today. It's just something we talked about Sundance and indigenous people and their way of life and how they honor nature. And I think Tom hasn't put it up yet, the recording, for those who haven't been here. But Tom will put it up this week. To bring back, when I talked about Sundance and the lodge that we build out in the forest for the yearly celebration, I kind of completely omitted one of the essential pillars because it is so integral to my life that I didn't even think of mentioning it. And that is that the center of the lodge that we build for the Sundance ceremony is actually the tree of life. So everything revolves around the tree of life. And the symbol of the tree of life now is a world-known, how shall I say, symbol. But maybe people don't realize that that is actually the core belief and the pillar, literally the pillar of life for the indigenous people, because they revere the tree and the central integral part. And one brings in the ceremonies of Sundance, everybody comes in on the Sundance Sundays, the final ceremony, which was last Sunday, is the moment where everybody comes to the tree and deposits all the ill, the hurt, the disease, or the ill feelings, all the chagrin is deposited at the tree and receives healing from the shamans that are surrounding you. So I just thought I'll add that, because that I thought was very important to know, because it is actually the reason why the Sundance even takes place. It is getting the community together and to heal the community as a whole, and everyone then who wants to have special healing goes to the tree and actually hugs the tree. And that tree has been cut at the beginning of the week, and the ceremony, and the prayers of the chief who gets the instructions from the other side which tree he should cut. And they go out with a number of people to go and pray to that tree, do sacrifice at the tree, and then they cut the tree and bring it in. And we have to dig a big, deep hole, 6 feet deep, with our hands, no tools, to plant the tree in the middle. So the tree becomes the pillar of the lodge. And therefore, because it is the tree of life, of course, as people bring their ill and their sorrow to the tree of life then gives life again for renewal. Beatrice, since you're here, there's something else I would like to say. Yesterday, you posted that wonderful, wonderful, absolutely glorious piece of organ music. And I thought if we had some time and if you would be happy to do so, I'd like to play it. And why would I like to play it? I would like to play it because, for 2 reasons. Firstly, I got a message from my son, and I'd like to read that message to you. It is a repost that he posted from somebody else, and I'd like to read it because I think it is very important. I've got it here. So somebody posted that on Instagram, and then he reposted it to me as a personal message. And it reads as follows. You have to know without a shadow of a doubt who your family is. The ones you know have exhumed your body with bare hands, without flinching when life tried to bury you. Those are the ones you pull out seats for first, when you finally get yours at the table. Those are the ones you give roses to daily, while they can still smell them.
Nice statement.
And I was just so deeply touched, for obvious reasons. And it brings me to that message of you yesterday. Let me find it, because I'd like to play it. Oh, hang on. I'd like to play it, but why would I like to play it? It is because my mom is here today, and she played in the church, and she played this piece in the church, and I was her note turner. And I'd like to play this in honor of my mom, so that she can have the audience here today. And I'd like you to imagine my mom playing this piece, because she did.
Well,
So, Mommy, we have been your audience today. Wait, let me unmute you. There we go.
Okay.
So we've been
Yeah,
your audience today.
Yeah. Brings back lots of memories, Yvonne, it really does. Yeah. But I hope you all heard it better than I did, because I could only hear just squeak, squeak, squeak.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
I hope I didn't play it like that.
No, you played it wonderfully. Oh, dear.
Sure brings back some memories. Thank you so much, Yvonne.
You're very
Thank
welcome.
you.
And the point of this is that a little reminder for all of us to just, well, honor our elders, because that is another very, very big pillar of the indigenous way of life that has brought many lessons to me. And I wish actually I would have had those lessons earlier.
yeah, isn't it so sad? We think of our elders as these redundant old people with rotten teeth and smelly breath and ingrown toenails, and they just like, you know, there's no place left on earth for them. And yet they are the brains and the souls and the bringers of music and life. And they have so much experience, and collectively they shape the world to what it is today. And it's so sad to just see that outsourcing of the elderly into spaces where we just can't be bothered with them anymore. So I go with that. I honor those forefathers, all of them. That's it, guys, I think, unless we want to add something.
I think May wanted to say something.
May?
I don't know if I want to say something. I've actually been keeping quiet because I have on the topic, Thomas, that you raised. I almost didn't join today because of exactly that. Because I have on the not because the group is. I was scared that it's going to come out actually exactly what you were talking about. So so I'm going to try and condense it. Personally, the anger that you talked about that as a result of this, I don't know, call it unfairness, not being able to speak, censorship, all of this. I have so much personally inside myself that I'm actually scared I'm going to blast the electronic equipment by either holding it in or expressing it. So the point of power and inequality and so on, I feel that I've been on both sides. I've been in the place of power and I've been in the disempowered space. And I think a huge reality about that is, and I don't know if it's that way for everyone, but for me, both times on both extremes, it was for me, I was there in ignorance. I was in a place of power because of the family or the culture that I was raised in. I'm not even bringing in past lives. There's that experience as well. But the times that I was in power or unequal above others, I was not aware of the inequality. And then later, specifically in this lifetime, I've been in situations where I have been disempowered. And also I ended up in that space because of ignorance, because of not understanding how my actions, my own judgment actually over certain situations puts me in a situation. So it doesn't really, it's whether you're in power or disempowered, it doesn't really matter. You know, it's both the same dynamic. You're just sitting on this side of the coin or that side of the coin. Doesn't really matter. So I think just what I could add to the conversation is that I think it's the need for censorship and the need for political correctness is a result of a lack of empathy, a lack of self-responsibility, a lack of respect for the self and for others, a lack of emotional intelligence for a beginning. So basically ignorance. If the more conscious we can be of ourselves and of others and the culture and forefathers and whatever, and when I speak, you know, does it actually add value, or am I just hoying it and, you know, abusing everyone around me because I have so much rage? Because there's a difference in what you do in your conduct. And there's also this, you know, who's better off and who's worse off. You know, I also believe that helping someone and not empowering someone is actually an act of abuse. If you're helping someone and you're not aiding in the release of the solution or the resolve of their situation, of their weakness, you are only acting in your judgment towards that person because you're putting yourself above them. And I think there's so much damage that happens as a result of exactly that we think we are helping, but we are actually aiding we feeding our own egos by saying, you know what, I'm better than this person and I'm going to help this person and I'm going to feel so good. And it's actually just feeding that is also narcissistic, while we sneer it with good intentions. And it's it's another thing why I didn't speak up earlier was I'm scared I'm going to swear so much and so many cuss words because it boils inside of me because of my personal intense experience with this. So I think it's just again, why we need the censorship and the political correctness is because we have violated the truth. We have violated the sacredness of our existence. And same as we need religion while we are figuring out spirituality. We need rules to limit us while we're still stupid, and while we haven't learned yet. So if we are, again, aiding one and not teaching and empowering them, we are controlling them. We are feeding the inequality. I think I'm going to stop there. And thank you.
And you know what, May, thank you very much. When you were talking, it made me think so much of that lazy 8, that sort of symbol of infinity, those two lobes that sort of come together. There's that so stands for me as a symbol of duality. Everything has its opposite. So there's love and hate and pleasure and pain and up and down and left and right, and everything has its opposite, light and dark. But there is that meeting point, that intersection, that tiny infinitesimally small space in the middle of those two lobes where these two meet. And that's the sweet spot. That's that place of holy indifference that the Gita so profoundly talks about. I suppose to take this story of language and censorship and stuff, being PC is just the one lobe. The opposite of that is just saying what you want to say in a derisive, ugly, who cares, the careless kind of way. But somewhere there's that meeting point, and in that meeting point, there is some amazing beauty there, because you don't need to self-censor. You don't need to censor. In that spot, if you're sitting exactly in that middle place, whatever emanates from you is never going to be ugly. It never needs censorship. It's never a veneer over something that's deep inside yourself that is festering there. With just this, it reminds me of an crappy old wall on an old factory, but it's got this beautiful poster of this beautiful being with Prada shoes and everything, and she looks magnificent, but it's kind of only paper thin, and you can easily just peel that away and see the kind of wall that supports all of that. And sometimes that PC world is a little bit like that. It's shallow, it's paper thin, it's just a veneer, it's a masquerade, but deep down inside, the structure underneath is rotten to the core. Anyway, I can go on like you, May, forever and ever on this subject. Anyone else want to say something? Marna, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a very, for me as well, May, a very emotional topic on both sides. I mean, the censorship, Tom, I've found myself on the wrong side. Everything that I want to read and what I believe is true is being censored. It doesn't mean that everything that I'm reading is actually correct. But, I want to read the studies that say whatever. I want to make up my own mind. And what you were saying about the marshmallow heads, I agree. People can't make up their own minds, but how are they going to learn that if they are only being fed one thing? A contagious subject regarding that is vaccinations. We are being bombarded. Vaccines are safe and it saves lives, but there's the other side of the coin, and people don't know that other side of the coin, and they haven't had the opportunity to evaluate both sides, and that's, the informed decision part flies out the door. That's a really dangerous place to be.
Exactly.
With the other thing, when the whole George Floyd thing happened the first time, I think we had a discussion on that just after it happened. I was thinking about, I'm not Black, so I can't I don't know what Black people are feeling. I mean, I can try, but I don't have a reference point really to deeply feel that. So I was trying to figure out in my mind, and I was thinking about bullies and the people being bullied. And we know in that interaction, both of those people are hurting. The bully is being a bully because he's trying to protect himself and because he's feeling really, really vulnerable. And the person who is being bullied has got his or her own issues. So I mean, it's a broken world, and people on both sides are broken. And I think, May, that's what you just said about empowering people. You know, you can only plant seeds. You can't do the healing for them. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe, yeah, you can't do the healing for them. So do we just wait?
Yeah. Mana,
for people to want to heal?
Sorry, you stopped there for a bit, but I think it was your internet connection stopped you. So I thought you were finished. Sorry if I spoke over the top.
No, I'm done.
So think of it this way: how would the world be if we took on a homosexual attitude on life, that all women are there and all men are here, and that the two can never get together, and that we have these like beliefs around, you know, that I don't want to be like you and you shouldn't be like me. The world would fall apart. What makes that male-female heterosexual thing so beautiful? It's the meeting point of opposites, is it not? In all respects, it's so complementary. It's like the pimples and dimples on Lego blocks. You couldn't build houses unless you had that kind of synergy. And wouldn't it be nice if we could just look at anyone and just see them as another diverse human being, as a human being? And another metaphor that I like to put in my mind, another analogy, is if I was a pathologist and I was doing autopsies, if I had two people of more or less the same build in on my table, and I peeled the skin off of both of them, like we peel the skin off of animals, and you see them hanging in the butcher shop on meat hooks, I would not be able to easily tell the difference between those two people. I'd have to be an expert to try and work out who was Chinese or who was black or who was white. I'd also have to be quite an expert to sort of look to see who's male or female, for that matter, who's old or young. And once the skin is peeled off, we more or less, in fact, we're pretty much the same. Why should that outer thin layer, that dermis of millimeters thick, be the differentiator between who we are as people? Bloody hell, no more, never again. That's what fairness is about. Mana, you want to add something?
Sorry, but no. Yes, no. I'm trying to come up with a solution, because we keep on, I've noticed in my own little world, we keep on saying what is wrong. And that's not going to fix the problem. So how do we fix that? I mean, I know we can't control other people. Well, I can't control other people. We know the media does. How do we fix this? I mean, I can fix it in my own circle. I mean, I see people as people. I like Yvonne. I mean, I use the word black to describe someone, but that is just that. It's a color. It's the difference between you and me, like you said. But there's no. I mean, we are people. We are all people, whether you are black or white or purple or Chinese or so. In my world, there's not that distinction, but on the outside, it gets really ugly. So
Mana,
do we just try to control the inside?
How often do you need to use that label to differentiate? Under what conditions would it be important?
No, almost never, because I know people's names. I don't know. So does it, then it comes back to that interpersonal relationships, you know, actually knowing the people who you buy, well, I don't know, your food from, or the person helping you in the garden, or, you know.
you know, I said to Tina yesterday when we had that little chuckle, I said, you see, sometimes the black color of the skin can be a big advantage. And I say, you don't get burnt in the sun. We have to hide from the sun. Okay. And I try to just bring a little bit of reframing in that gets them to understand that I do not hold that feeling of that negative feeling of black in my heart, because I must presume that they think that I hold that in my heart because South Africans have gone through apartheid and have felt that all the time. And I don't hold it in my heart, but they don't know that. So sometimes I have to just give little snippets of little suggestions that I do think differently.
But then sometimes that come across also as being placative.
Can be.
It can be, and you know, my bottom line here after this little think this week is that I would just like people. I'd like to give people the rope to hang themselves. Say what you want to say. I don't want to be. I'm not a great fan for censorship. I make up my own mind, and I will soon know which side of the fence you stand on. Mana, May, you wanted to say something more? Yeah. May?
Can I add something again? So I think Mara, or for me, it's frustration that I also identify with what you're saying. You know, this thing that I understand that I can't control people, but I have to control my response, and I have to, you know, I'm in this environment and I cannot also isolate myself when I'm not getting what feels to me like I'm not getting but the samewerking, you know, it's like it's I'm on this mission and I can't make someone else or anyone else want or be or, you know, will something other than even, you know, I can have all the solutions, but if they're not open to it, then I can't do anything with it. And I don't know how this works. I just know that there's two things, as in how to approach the frustration or what I understand from my work is that firstly we need to neutralize, because otherwise we can't have, if you're judging something, if you're either above or below something, then you have no influence. So we need to get to a point where you know, I need to first, when I feel that rage, be honest with myself and say, listen, I'm 7 swear words angry. I am that, but not go lay it on someone else and say, listen, so it's about acknowledging it for the beginning, for a start. You have to acknowledge it, but not go and continue this fight, you know. So so I think the first thing is about being honest with yourself and taking that responsibility, because it's also, if things are still happening to you, you're in victim mode. And if you know, well, you're not you, I mean, all of us, if we feel we don't have control, things are happening to me, and then I'm being a victim. I'm not taking responsibility, and that's part of, for me, I know when I have that experience, that's my little inner child that's protesting and saying, listen, please just like see me and love me and acknowledge me and all of that. But now I know that even with all this beautiful awareness that I have and all this wisdom and all these tools and all this wonderful work that I do, I still seek acknowledgement from others. And, you know, I'm battling with that, because isn't that part of being human? Because yes, it is. It's not, I'm not supposed to be immune. I'm not supposed to be disconnected emotionally. I'm supposed to feel connected. So firstly, I need to feel connected to, I need to somehow figure out how feeling connected to others is, and to get that flow going. But it's not about keeping the fight, you know, this having to fight for this feeling of connection. It's about coming into alignment with it. I don't know how it works, but I understand that that's the way we want to get to.
So May, there is a social law, and this is the law of reciprocity. And the law of reciprocity is, if I do some act of kindness for you, you need to do something in return. So if I brought you a glass of water, it would be incumbent of you, certainly in our Western culture, for you to say thank you. But if there is a black hole of neediness, an insatiable neediness within, then what it sounds like might very well happen is that you look to others, you do acts of kindness to others in order for them to affirm who you are and to fill that neediness, because you yourself can't fill that own neediness.
Yeah.
And so when you're reliant on somebody else, when you pervert the social law of reciprocity, in other words, I do these amazing things for you and I don't get your acknowledgement back, then that's an indication, not that the other person is wrong, but that there is something so fundamentally needy and broken within that you absolutely have to feed off of that person's acknowledgement of who you are. And wouldn't it be better, wouldn't it be more authentic if you filled that need from within? If you yourself were the one that was able to rest in that place of peacefulness, saying, it doesn't matter what your opinion is. I don't care whether you acknowledge me or distance me. I don't care whether you notice me or not. It is my feeling about myself that brings me into this place of peace, rather than me needing to placate you or you needing to placate me in any way.
Yes, Thomas, I agree with that, but just also what happens sometimes is because our mind, or what I've seen happen with myself and with others, is that we understand this concept that I need to be full from myself, and now I can't be getting this, what we call approval from others, but we still have a need to feel connected. And now I go, I'm going to disconnect completely. I'm going to mentally override this, and I'm going to isolate myself, and I'm going to pretend to myself, I'm going to lie to myself and say that I don't have needs. And that's another disorder. It's another dysfunction just playing out to replace this one. It's just a reactive measure to not feel this. And then I numb out my emotions and my need for connection, because it's also, I think the reality is that we've all grown up in whatever we in like addiction terms, that the family where you were, when you were young, your first
Maybe losing your
experiences, and kind of completely free of that. I don't know if that is humanly possible. So I think it would be kinder to oneself to keep a balance and to heal from these traumas and these needs that are still disordered, but still understand that, listen, the only way I can at this point experience that connectedness is if I get it from someone. And I think that is part of the, as I said before, if someone is just helping me, giving me that without actually helping me to grow, without actually empowering me to need it less, then that is continuing that codependence. It's not helping us all to heal from the situation. So if I, for instance, it's been coming up a lot lately around me, also financially and so on, with people, if someone is giving someone money who's not able to provide for themselves at this moment, then, but not actually, and that is the act of helping them is not empowering them to empower themselves, continuing it. But when if this help is actually aiding in me empowering myself, then we all grow and we all heal. So it's not, so saying that we have those needs on that level, saying that is wrong and that we need to not have those is, I think that's just denying and avoiding the actual healing, because the actual healing is really tough and it takes a lot of courage to actually admit, listen, I can only experience it this way now.
So I
in my human form.
I was admiring you. I wish somewhere you'd take a breath, because there's so many little parts in what you say that I want to sort of like get in there and challenge you. Go back to that lazy 8. Isn't it important for us to, in our spiritual quest, come back to that place of non-attachment, that place of holy indifference? Because there's the only place that we can find peace. When we are stuck on the one lobe or on the other lobe, when we feel hard done by, or when we're trying to overcompensate, we lose that balance. We're not on that little center point anymore. And it's only in that center point where we have no attachment to what you say. I think if you had to put the Dalai Lama into your position right now, the Dalai Lama would be nonplussed. So, what happened? I don't even notice anything that happened. I'm not out of balance. So I'm still not sure, because you try to justify your sense of neediness. I am a human being, and so I have needs. I get that. But the neediness sort of is also a light on the dashboard that says we're slightly out of balance.
I think it's a hard topic, because it's as I said earlier on, I've been on like both extremes, and it's to find out exactly where that middle point is. So just another, maybe again, I'm always the special case. I do understand that, but personally, I've also had with this thing about having needs and acknowledging my needs and all of that. It's for a I don't know. I think we can. Or I've seen it play out how we can be highly functional, dysfunctional human beings, and completely. Sorry, I'm going to say it now. Completely bullshit ourselves into thinking that we've got that perfect point of balance, and it's actually hogwash. It's really we can put ourselves above the situation, because I've also
Why is that hogwash?
Well, because the mind is so damn clever that, the cleverer we are, the more we outsmart ourselves, and the more we protect the disordered pattern.
How?
Because we're just being better than it.
How?
By outsmarting it, by making it all mental, by saying, listen, I've got control, by putting the ego in place.
Are you saying that you
Sorry?
overthink? Are you saying that you overthink things? What if you stop?
Not necessarily.
What if you
Not
just?
necessarily. It's.
I don't understand.
It's not necessarily overthinking. That can also happen, but it's what I'm. Okay, so I think what happens is when we are overwhelmed and something is too much, and what is we are in is too much, then when we get to that point of overwhelm, our ego comes in. It says, okay, I'll control this for you. I'll take control. And that's a necessary survival mechanism, but then we need to get out of that again. So it forces that point of balance.
Who says that's a necessary survival mechanism? Might there not be a survival mechanism, a different one?
Like what?
Letting it go. Letting it being like a Teflon pan with a fried egg that won't stick.
Not necessarily. I think that's sometimes part of the ego going, okay, listen, I'm just not going to let this affect me, whilst that's not the truth. So yes, sometimes, but you still need to know where you are.
You're saying you don't have choice. You don't have choice to say.
No, you absolutely have choice. It's about the responsibility. That's exactly what I'm saying, is this choice that we do not want to take responsibility for, which puts us in victim mode.
Why can't you take responsibility?
It's breaking up. I can't.
Why?
So I'm only getting half of what you say.
Why can't you take responsibility?
No, it's not. I think in human terms, because I believe that as humans, we need limitation, because otherwise we'll combust. We can't experience all of this that we are if we don't have limitations. So when we're pushing ourselves too far, then the ego has to come in and say, okay, listen, stop now. I'm gonna put a stop to this now.
So fair point. So fair point.
Mm.
And but how come you get pain out of that? How come that seems so unfair? Can't you just say,
I don't know
oh,
if it's unfair. I think that's the beauty of taking responsibility for your own choices, and then in I don't know how we gonna. I think in essence we are ascension beings, and if we don't honor that, then if we don't honor our growth, we're going to somehow find a way to force ourselves. You know, whether it takes however long. And if you're being speaking about pain, if you are the most resilient person that you know against pain, then obviously pain is your weak spot where you need to go and hammer yourself at. You know.
Do I read
you need to go at least where you think that you are the strongest.
Do I read between the lines? Do I read between the lines that here is a being who is fractured? There is this beautiful spiritual part of you, and there is this human needy part of you, and these two are at war with each other, and they jostle for a meeting space somewhere.
I don't think they are at war with each other. I think the war is more, or how I see it personally, is that our you know what happens inside your body. You know, it looks we've got the skin that covers all the processes, the war that actually happens. If you think about what happens to food when you're digesting it, that food does not have a, you know, if you're eating something, it gets digested, it gets attacked with stomach acid and this and that, it gets transformed completely. That is not pretty. It's not, but we have this beautiful skin and linings and everything that keeps everything in its place and covers everything, and it doesn't look so bad and whatever, but that is necessary for experiencing human form.
But
it's not pretty.
You're off at a tangent now about the internal thing. Where is the war? Is this a war between two parts of you, or is this a war that you're having between you
no, why is it
and
war?
the world outside you?
No war.
No war.
No war.
Ken, you want to say something?
Ken.
Yeah, I think the age-old question, all religions and in all metaphysical science and esoteric science, is only one question. It is what is standing between me and God, and then you can define God as you want to define it. Let's say creative consciousness, and that is the self. The self is standing between me and my realization to achieve higher the ego, which manifests in different fixations. So it's been referred to in ancient religions as the 7 deadly sins. In the Enneagram, they take it up to 9 sins. The Desert Fathers took it up to 9 sins. 9 sins meaning 9 ego fixations. That is stuff like anger, pride, lust, gluttony, slothfulness, however you want to define it. So if we want to call it the battle or the war, is for me realizing, and this can happen over many lifetimes, which of these egos are the ones in this lifetime that I need to be aware of, that is blocking me for realizing the union with the Godhead. Thanks.
Hey.
I don't know, it broke up there. Sorry, I didn't, did you say something, Thomas? I didn't hear.
No, I was just giving you a chance to respond to Ken.
Sorry, I've gone like three different places again from there. I think the ego responses for
It's okay to be silent.
okay, so No. I'm just trying trying to figure out how to say what I'm saying. So I'm gonna not give the logical response. I'm just gonna say what's coming up for me is this. If we are able to just be with what is now, with my anger, not judge it. So I have so it's about combining these different faculties, and it's about connecting them with each other. So learning about the sins, learning about the control on a logical way, so that my mind does not again combust. You know, to keep my sanity, so that I can keep, in human terms, kind of control of my process, so that I do not go into a manic or a depressed state, or anxiety or whatever, which puts me out of governance of my own being, so that I can stay together enough to be okay enough with feeling the anger, the sadness, the disconnectedness, the neediness, the pain, all of this, because it's when it's that, I don't know if the right word is peace, but it's, if we can maintain that point, and that's the between the in the 8, that's the point. And at that point, it doesn't mean I'm free of ego. It doesn't mean I am now enlightened. It is a point of enlightenment, but it doesn't mean I'm not sinful. I'm still sinful, but for now, that's what I am. And that's the I think that's the point that where we keep wanting to go back to, because of our ascension, and our ego keeps pulling us away from it, because it aids us in returning, actually. So it's all working together. It's not actually fighting with each other. It's working together, unless we make it something else.
Yeah.
Which we can do, because it's fun for humans.
Sipho, I thought I saw you put your hand up, my friend. Did you want to say something? No? Sipho, I thought I saw you put your hand up somewhere. I think the coffee is more important.
Yeah, no, I'm just listening.
I don't believe that, Sipho.
That's perfect. Anyway, guys, I think we must start to wind down. We've had a lovely, robust debate today. I just love this. I'm going to take this offline with May, because there's lots of things that I'm just like eager to get in there, but we'll be here until 5 this afternoon discussing. Awesome stuff, guys. I think love to everyone, love to our ancestors, love to ourselves. If only we could just see ourselves in that space of fairness, and just be happy, be in that space. All cool. Go well.
Bye.
Speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.